We'll call to order the Town of Farragut Visual Resources Review Board meeting for February 2021. I believe it's already 2021 in February at that. So, first order of business will be to approve the minutes from our January 2021 meeting. Is there any discussion from our board members or questions or comments about those minutes? All right, sounds like there's none. So do we have a motion on the minutes?
This is Alderman Pinchuk. I'll move for approval of the minutes.
All right, we have a motion to approve. You a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second from Ms. Stowe. So I guess we need to call a roll call vote on that.
Okay, Mr. Armstrong? Mr. Armstrong? We've lost him. Ms. Hollyfield?
Yes.
Mr. Lehman?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
And let's come back and see if Mr. Armstrong's back. No. Okay. Well, the motion passed.
I approve.
Oh, Brittany didn't do it, right?
No, I got Brittany.
Oh,
I didn't do it.
Okay.
Somebody did.
Yeah. Okay. Then Mr. Pinchuk and Ms. Stowe.
This is
Yes.
Alderman Pinchuk. Yes.
And Ms. Stowe? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I guess I had already written down motion in second, so that was my mistake there.
All right, so we'll move along. We'll follow the same order that we have on all of our virtual meetings to this point, and that moves us down to the ground-mounted sign applications. The first one on the agenda for this evening is the Admiral's Dojo, which is a tenant panel on an existing ground-mounted sign. It's at 11665 Parkside Drive, so over in Turkey Creek. And I guess with that, I'll turn it over to you, Bart.
Okay, this is a just a basic tenant panel. It's a well-designed sign. They didn't clutter it up too much. It's very legible. I don't know if you've been out there to look at it, but it's ready for approval.
All right, so we'll go through each board member as always and give you an opportunity to ask questions, make comments at this point. So we'll start with Mr. Armstrong. Are you there?
Well, I don't know. I think he's still having problems.
Muted.
Okay.
It says his video's out on my end, like low bandwidth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll ask again. We'll come back around to him. So, what about? Well, Brittany, you're there. What about you? More?
I think it looks good. I was just wondering if the wall sign was up and if it was consistent. If it was, I think they just had a vinyl sign up when I went by there the last time.
I believe they have their permit for their wall sign. I'm not sure if it's up yet.
Alderman Pinchuk, any questions, comments?
One question. I couldn't see. Is that sign, the lettering, is it black or blue? I was curious.
It's a dark blue.
Okay. And what are all the other signs lettered in? What color?
I think most of them are black, but our regulations require the background to be the same color, not necessarily the lettering.
Yeah, I have no problem with the sign at all. I like it. I was just curious because I couldn't tell from the picture what color it was. And I did not see, the last time I was in there just a few days ago to get some donuts, I didn't see the wall sign up. I just saw a banner yet. So curious as to when that wall sign's going up.
All right. Any comments or questions, Ms. Stowe?
No, I mean I had to look twice. It's a real subtle, just a subtle difference in the blue and the black that I see, but I'm kind of surprised they didn't put a donut on there instead of a star. but it looks fine.
All right. Miss Hollyfield?
The star, it's a little yellow, correct? And then we have a yellow for the core change and then a green for the juice bar. So there are some colors in there other than just the black. As far as, the Admiral, like she said, it's almost like a dark blue. So it matches. But is that star, is it a yellow? I mean, is there something in the star? Because I can't read it.
Yeah, there's some logo in there, but it's,
Okay.
there's some gold or, gold type.
So that's their emblem. I mean, I don't know. Is this a chain to where that star is? I'm like you, Jenny.
Yeah, they're a chain. They seem to be going in around, areas that have, or, high schools and whatnot in them. Like here it's Admirals and another part
Okay.
of Cabbage Panther.
Oh, okay.
So that logo, that's their logo then. That star is a logo, correct?
Well, it's going to be there for this store, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No other questions.
All right, Mr. Rogers, any questions or comments?
No comment.
All right, Mr. Armstrong, are you back on with us?
I am back on.
All right.
So I'm all good with the signage. I don't know what I missed.
Talking to you there, and you weren't here, so
I could see and hear you guys, but I don't think I was totally in the system, so I'm in now.
okay. Awesome.
So you approve of that first one, correct? The minutes you approve.
Yeah, I gave you the thumbs up.
We didn't see you.
Yeah, we couldn't even see you, Randy. So
We couldn't
Okay.
see the thumbs up.
I'm here now. Thumbs up on the minutes.
All right. Perfect. And I don't think Mr. Wright has joined us. I just want to ask that in case you're here now. Okay. Sounds like he's not. So, all right. So do we have a motion on this item?
Motion to approve. This is from
All right,
Cindy.
motion approved by Miss Hollyfield. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second by Ms. Stowe. So is the applicant present tonight?
I don't believe anyone else is on the meeting.
Okay. Do we have any comments that we need to read?
No, I don't have any.
All right. So I will guess there's no amendments to the motion here. So with that, it's time for the roll call vote.
Okay. Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Ms. Hollyfield,
Yes.
Mr. Lehman. Mr. Lehman?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Alderman Pinchuk?
Yes.
Ms. Stowe?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
All right. So with that, we'll move down to item 2 on the ground mounted sign applications, which is the Evolve Smoke Shop. Also a tenant panel on an existing sign at 715 North Campbell Station Road. So I'll turn it over to staff.
Okay, this is another tenant panel. It's going in out there near the interstate. I think you all know where the site is. They actually redesigned it, made it a much more visible site. They had some more language down there at the bottom of the sign that wasn't particularly readable, and it sort of took away from the rest of the message. So they were able to enlarge the smoke shop lettering and improve it. They will be matching the color of the panels that are out there. It's hard for them to show on a rendering like this, but the background color will match the other panels on the sign, which is now required under the revised sign ordinance.
All right.
It appears approvable.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments, Mr. Armstrong?
No questions or comments.
All right. Miss Hollyfield?
No questions.
All right. Miss Moore?
No questions or comments?
Ms. Stowe?
I have one. What do they sell? Cigarettes?
Yeah, cigarettes, vaping products, cigars. That was part of what was on the language on the lower part of the sign, but it was so small that you couldn't really read it unless you were right up on it, and
Okay.
it sort of took away from the rest of the sign, so they were able to make it a more visible sign, particularly from the street in that location with the larger lettering.
Well, I think the sign looks fine.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, Alderman Pinchot?
Yeah, I like the sign. I have no questions or comments.
Rogers?
No comment.
All right, same here. So is there a motion from the board?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second it. Alderman Pinchot.
We got a motion by Ms. Moore and a second by Alderman Pinchot. So I think there's no one else on from the applicant. So any citizens' comments for this one?
No, sir.
All right, I expect again there'll be no amendments. So we're straight to the roll call vote again.
Mr. Armstrong.
Yes.
Ms. Hollyfield.
Yes.
Mr. Lehman.
Yes.
Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Alderman Pinchot.
Yes.
And Ms. Stowe.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes.
All right. We will move down to the last item on the ground mounted sign list, which is Knoxville Orthodontics, another tenant panel at 11213 West Point Drive. And again, I will turn it over to staff.
Okay, this is a large tenant panel on a two-tenant business. The sign is already up. They got ahead of themselves and installed one that is actually not. It doesn't look like this. It's purple background with white lettering, so they're going to have to remove that and put up this version. It doesn't show perfectly there, but the note on this you can see says that the background color is going to match on the the existing tenant panel, which is what we require. The lettering is still going to be purple, but I'm given the size of it, it's a little busy in terms of the amount of information on the sign, but given the size of it, it should be legible.
All right. Questions or comments? We'll start this time with Alderman Pinchot.
Yeah, I just got a question. You say they already put the sign up, but it's different than this. So is there, what's the communication problem there? What's happened?
They just went ahead and put it up. I mean, I'm not exactly sure why, that happens occasionally where someone gets ahead of themselves. They don't, they don't realize they need a permit for it, or whatever the circumstances are. Typically what we do is we double bill when someone puts a sign up prior to getting the permit, just as a penalty for doing that. In this case, since what they put up doesn't match the standards, they're being penalized in that way, that they're going to have to remove the sign they put up and have a note and have a compliance sign fabricated and reinstalled.
I just hate to have anybody have to pay extra, and I mean, they're going to have to in this case, but my point is there some way to correct this in the future? Somehow when they're looking to go into this building, they've got to be requesting some kind of permit for the building, for the business, and at that time, should we not be telling them that they're going to have their signs approved?
I mean, we could try to let people know that. Most people know. I mean, it's fairly, only really a handful of times a year do we get someone put a sign up without a permit. It's happened here recently on several signs, and we sort of reiterated to the sign companies, that most of the sign companies know that they need a permit.
just the short time I've been on this board, I've noticed it several times, and I just hate to have anybody have to pay extra to replace something like this. But we got to get the word to them early enough so that it doesn't happen anymore. So maybe you can find a way to work that into the permitting process early on.
Yeah.
I like the sign. I'm okay with the sign as long as the background matches, and like in your notes that the color's dark enough that it's legible. So those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Ms. Moore?
I like the sign. I do think it's legible. I just have a question. Do we know how tall the letters are on Knoxville Orthodontics? I'm not really as concerned about the names. It does seem like a lot, but I think we see a lot of the businesses like this around the town where the name is smaller just to kind of differentiate. When there's a lot, like around this loop, I think there's a lot of dentists and orthodontics. But do we know how big that Knoxville Orthodontics are?
No, they didn't give us the exact dimensions of the lettering. I mean, it looks like they're comparable to, the sign, that's above it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it looks about the same size. I was just wondering, because we normally just try to give them a size for legibility to kind of stick with them. But
yeah, we don't.
That's all. I mean, I think it's legible enough through that area, and it looks visible to me.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Rogers, you have any comments or questions?
I think it looks legible, and no further comment.
All right, Ms. Hollyfield?
I just have a comment. I agree that we seem to be having several more of the signs being put up, and actually it's happened more since COVID. And I don't know if that has a lot to do with it. People just assume, that I don't know. It just seems to be that things are falling through the cracks a little bit when it comes to just deciding to put the signs up. So I agree with Ron about somehow doing something to let them know. I mean, it's on the website and all of that, so I really don't know why that they're having the problem. So that's number one. And what's wrong with the sign that they have now? So this sign, what's the difference? I'm sorry, I didn't notice this sign.
The sign that's up there now is got a purple background with white lettering.
Okay, I understand now. So you're just reversing it. The white background and then the purple lettering, correct?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit more of a tannish. It's an off-white background if you go out and look at the existing panels out there, but yeah,
Okay, so now it's going to be white to match the Farragut oral surgery, correct?
Yeah, which
white
is
background
which
and
is
then
what I mean the sign regulations now require that the background color on panels be consistent on the sign, and that no one sign really stands out more than the others. Yep.
So, and the Farragut is black, correct? The Farragut oral surgery is black.
Yeah, or it's either black or a very dark brown.
Okay, so is it really brown? Okay. Well, the sign looks good. It's that they're going to be putting up. So I have no other comments.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Armstrong?
Yeah, I agree with the comments that are being made, and I don't know what our policy is on this or where we started, and I'm going to say something that may not be very popular, but I just don't feel like the names of doctors or dentists should be on road signage myself.
I agree.
Both signs, there's a lot there. Granted, you can read it, but most of the time I think you would see a road sign with the name of the business and the doctor's name or dentist's name or whatever would be on the side of the building. So I'm good with it as is, but just want to make those comments.
All right, thank you. Ms. Stowe?
Okay, I have a couple of comments. First, I respectfully disagree with Randy and Cindy in that I personally like to see the doctor's name on the sign, because I may forget the whole name of the business, but I will know that doctor's name. So, but I'm a little older than you all, so that's helpful for me. All in respect. Okay. And the other thing is, I'm a little confused. I want to make sure I am seeing the right thing. The sign that's on the thing right now, is that the same thing as is coming out front here on the front of the screen, the Knoxville Orthodontics? Are they the
Yeah.
same?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, so this is not actually what's on the sign right now.
No, it's not.
Okay, so this is what we're approving to be on the sign.
Yes.
Okay, I understand, and I approve.
All right, thank you. You know, a couple of comments I want to make there too is I think it's pretty easy, or I think the mistake people must make is that when there is an existing ground mounted sign that just needs a new face on it of some sort, especially one with another tenant in it, I think they feel like it's already been permitted and they can just change it.
Oh,
Even if it's the same owner changing his sign or a new person coming in, I sort of feel like that's the viewpoint. I may not be exactly right there, but that's one perspective that I have, is that they just feel like it's already there. Why can't I change it? So that's
That's a good
probably
point.
the angle of education that I would recommend, is trying to get that word out somehow, some way. The other comment that I think that I remember, we've had several conversations over a number of years about a minimum letter height on a sign, depending on what type of road that it faces. You know, Kingston Pike would need to be a higher or taller letter, obviously, than this road, which is a road you're going to drive very slowly on and probably be able to read smaller lettering. So I guess that did not make it into any of the regulations. Is that correct?
No, sir, it didn't.
Okay.
I just sort of stayed with the legibility standard. I think, from talking to Mark over the past couple of years about that, I think some of the guidance he had gotten early on, that just a straight height is sometimes difficult because, the font, plays a big part in it, and so does the contrast with the background and the spacing of the lettering. So, but
Well,
it is something we've discussed.
yeah, I think the sign is legible. I don't have a problem with what they put on there, even though I kind of agree with adding extra things like names and phone numbers and stuff like that. Makes it different, makes it more of an advertisement to me than a wayfinding feature, which is what I think the sign is. But I think this is legible. I think you can read it on that street. I think it's fine. But I do go back and think, if we had some standard on a minimum height, that would probably help us a lot, especially when you're talking about Kingston Pike or another traveled road at high speeds, where a smaller height becomes very difficult to read. So,
Yeah.
otherwise, I'm fine with this sign.
Marty, this is Alderman Pinchot. During the sign, when we were meeting on the signing, there was discussion about the lettering, but then we decided just to make the sign band larger. I think Bart, was it 8 or 9 inches, something? There was some kind of minimum that we wanted on those sign bands. Hopefully that would allow the lettering to be bigger.
Yeah, and I think the problem is when they try to add too much to the sign, and if by adding those names at the bottom, it had created a situation where the rest of the sign was not legible, then as staff we would have went back at them and said, the sign doesn't appear to be legible. We're not going to be able to recommend in favor of it. You really need to redesign and consider taking those names off so that you increase the size of the lettering on the main sign. But in this case, it's legible. So, or at least it appeared legible to us.
Okay. Well, that answers my question, and thank you both for that. At this point, we're ready for a motion. Do we have a motion from the board?
motion to approve.
All right, a motion approved by Ms. Hollyfield. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Armstrong.
All right, second by Mr. Armstrong. Again, I don't think there's anybody present from the applicant. Are there any comments to read into the record on?
No, sir, there's not.
All right. I don't expect an amendment. So with that, we're back to roll call vote again.
Okay. Mr. Armstrong,
Yes.
Ms. Hollyfield,
Yes.
Mr. Lehman,
Yes.
Ms. Moore,
Yes.
Alderman Pinchuk,
Alderman Pinchuk, yes.
and Ms. Stowe.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay. So we're going to move down now to the next item on the agenda, which is the landscape plan application for this evening. That is the Kingston Pike Village Phase 2 at 13140 Kingston Pike. It's going to be a grocery store with a station there, along with some shops located out along Kingston Pike. And so, over to you, Bart.
Okay, this is a fairly elaborate landscaping plan, as you can tell. I hope you all had a chance to look it over a bit. There's a lot on it. It's phase 2 of this development, which is going to include the grocery store along with 2 retail shops and the gas pumps. You approved the landscaping plan for phase 1 back in July of 2020. That was the apartments, and it also included some buffer strip areas along with the detention basin for for the larger development. So they've come back now, and they're at this phase of the project, and they're looking to have their landscape plan for this approved. I've been in contact with the landscape architect. We had a couple of additional comments we wanted them to look at, and they agreed to. One is adding some additional evergreen screening to the dumpster enclosure that's right back. Okay, why can't I? There we are. Right back in here. So we've asked them to consider putting some screening back there, and they've agreed to that. And then they're also, well, ignore that. That was me not knowing what I'm doing with this new little Surface Pro I have. And then this line of trees up here were Armstrong red maples, and we were afraid they'd get a little too high with regard to the power lines that are also there. So we've asked them to consider substituting either Winter King hawthorn or Trident maple, or a combination of the two in that space. And again, they've agreed to that. And then I think staff had one other comment, which is on the detail sheet, or on the back sheet of the plan, they were showing a back behind the. Let me see if I can advance to one of the sheets. It's got a little more detail. Back here behind this area back in here, all through here is actually going to be an engineered grass surface everywhere that hatcher pattern is, that will be able to bear the weight of fire equipment and that sort of thing. And it's just a matter of making sure that what they're proposing back there, is approvable by the fire marshal and matches the site plan. So with those comments, staff can recommend approval.
All right, just to be clear, you had 3 comments there. You're saying comments 1 and 2 that they have already agreed to?
Yeah, 1 and 2, and 3 is really just a matter of them being aware that, we want the fire marshal to, again, check off on what they're proposing. And I don't know what happened there. And to, make sure that it matches what he's already approved on the site plan that went through the planning commission. So it's really just a check and balance there to make sure that what the engineer gave the landscape architect is what the fire marshal approved on the site plan.
Okay, so generally speaking, the only subject to remaining is number 3, because item 1 and 2 has already been agreed to.
It's been agreed to, but it needs to be part of your board's motion,
Okay.
to require it. Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. So board questions and comments. Ms. Moore.
I don't really have any. The only thing I have is if they've agreed to the screening around the dumpsters, do you know what they're going to use to screen that in with?
No, I haven't talked to them about the exact species, but we'll make sure it's not invasive and that it's on our plant list and that sort of thing.
That was really the only thing I had.
Okay. All right, Alderman Pinchuk.
Yeah, I've got a question about item 3 that Bart was talking about around the tough track paver section. We need to make sure the fire marshal can approve that before getting the fire truck through there. And some of the trees there are the red maples, and those can get pretty big. I believe it looks like there's 3 drawn in there. The other trees are smaller, but I'm concerned it might be a little tight back there, and we got 3 big trees going. I'm a little concerned about that. Has that been discussed, Bart, with them?
Yeah, we looked at that, and that's also one of the reasons we asked them to substitute out the red maples that they had planned in front of the building, and really, if you approve the use of the red maples, you'll be actually approving them as a substitution to a standard shade tree, because that particular variety of red maple, the Armstrong red maple, is got a very column like form. It's fairly narrow. Its crown only gets 15 to 25 feet wide, so it gets tall, but it's a narrow tree as opposed to really spreading out. So that they did select those trees for those locations, so there wouldn't be a lot of interference.
I've got a red maple in my backyard. It must be 40 feet wide. And that's my concern. I don't know if it's an Armstrong red maple, but I know it is a red maple. So that's my concern. My tree is awfully big, and sure didn't want anything that big in that track back there.
Yeah.
So,
well, again, actually, the that particular variety of red maple, part of the note I put on your staff memo there is that if you approve the plan, you're also approving its use as a substitution, because given its growth characteristics, it doesn't even qualify as a shade tree under the ordinance. But the ordinance makes provisions for you to allow substitutions in when locations are tight and things like that. So it shouldn't be a 40-foot wide tree.
all right. I just want to make sure the fire marshal understands what those trees are and the size of them, and he's he approves it. As long as he does, I'm fine. Okay, that's all I got.
All right, Ms. Hollyfield. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Cindy.
Sorry, never mind. Actually, the winter you are wanting to substitute, or for us to substitute the hawthorns and the trident maples for those red maples, correct? That's what you're actually asking. And I'm like, Ron, I think those 8 red maples, they can get very large. I'm like you, I don't know about the Armstrong, but red maples can really cause damage. So why are we even considering letting them keep the red maples? Because
the recommendation is they substitute the Winter King hawthorn or the trident maples for the red maples at the front of those 2 buildings. So those 8 will be substituted out. There's a few more red maples scattered about the site that they were counting as shade trees to match their shade tree numbers, that we don't have a problem with the location.
Okay, the trident, will they be considered shade trees too?
They qualify as a shade tree on our list. They are a small tree. It was a tree that when I spoke to Mark about it as to why it was listed as a shade tree on our preferred list, He was looking for something that's smaller that, could go under power lines and that sort of thing. So it's, that's a listed tree on the town's preferred list for shade.
So I just wondered why they wouldn't maybe substitute all of the red. I mean, is there a reason why they want to keep those other few back there, the red maples, or could they just make it consistent to where they change all of those? Because I am concerned, like you said, about them getting larger and the fire marshal and all that stuff. So I have a problem with I don't want to say yes and then all of a sudden they get 40 feet like Ron was talking about, because they get huge. So, I mean, are they really wanting those red maples where that, or?
I mean, that's what the landscape architect designed for the site. So, I mean, our concern was the ones there near the power lines.
Okay.
If it hadn't been for the power lines, we wouldn't even been concerned with the ones
Really?
at the front, although none of them technically qualify as a shade tree because the crown isn't wide enough. Our ordinance requires something to qualify as a shade tree has to have at least a 30-foot wide crown, and these don't have that growth characteristic.
Okay.
So,
well, the Armstrong may be, I'm not familiar with an Armstrong red maple, so I don't know if that, how really high they do get. I didn't research that. So, Brittany, do you know? You're so good about this.
I mean, I know they have really, really small leaves, so if there's a paver and it's supposed to be permeable back there, I was looking at them on the front part and, thinking about them under lines and being next to parking lot, it's a mess. So I was just looking at the 1 for 1 and where they were. I didn't know about it being kind of fire lane back there.
So what do you think? You think that Ron kind of voiced a concern, so do I. So,
I mean, they have southern magnolias next to them, which get ginormous.
Oh
too.
yeah,
so,
they do too.
I mean,
that's right.
Really, everything on the back there is a large. It's large. I don't know how wide that is. I can't really tell from the plan how big that area is, but really, all of that gets pretty big.
So
yeah.
It really sounds to me like number 3 is going to be up to the fire marshal on a lot of this stuff. Right.
Well, I'll ask him to look at the trees as well. I mean, our only concern was that the spec, the cross section they put for the engineered grass, area just met, was up to what the fire marshal had already approved them to use on the site plan. We just wanted to make sure that everything matched.
That's the only concern. I would like for him to, definitely look at the trees. The last thing is that the permeable pavers or is it tough track pavers? What is that? The ones that take the rain real well? Is that the same thing?
They're not pavers. It's more of an engineered lawn type product.
Oh. Okay.
Let me see if I can find that.
Wasn't familiar. I thought it was like the pavers like that they have at McPhee or something.
No, they're showing it on this sheet that I have up here now. It showed up. It's this detail up here. Can you see my picture?
I see it. Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
All right, Mr. Armstrong.
No, I do have one question though. I think I missed the meeting where we talked about phase 1 for this project. Are we allowed to say the name of the grocery store on this call?
Yeah, I think it's common knowledge now.
Is it?
Yes, it is. Food City.
Food City. Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if everyone knew that, and I was in the dark here. I'm just curious, what was phase 1, Bart?
Phase 1 was the apartments that are going to be upslope from there.
Okay.
So they brought in the landscape plan for the areas around the apartments. There was some buffering requirements where that development abuts some residential property that's on the other side of the hill, and then also the large sort of detention pond feature that they have or that they're going to have was also reviewed on the last landscape plan for phase 1.
Gotcha. Sorry to go backwards. I just needed that context. I don't have any other comments.
No
Thank
problem.
All right, Ms. Stowe.
No, I don't have any comments.
All right, Mr. Rogers.
Everything I had thought about was already answered, so no further comment.
All right, I want to follow up there on that question just a little bit because it's hard to remember back to something we've already done, Bart, but that property is pretty well sloped, as I remember. There's a lot of grading work going on. So as far as the buffering between this development and the multifamily housing that's going to be there, you feel, I guess, one, you feel like what's here plus what's on the other plan, that it's adequate. And two, has there been anything addressed as far as what the lighting is going to be like around the grocery store and how that might affect the residents of the multifamily housing?
Well, the lighting's already been, or would have been approved as part of the site plan. This is an integrated project. The whole area was zoned planned commercial development, and although it's being done in phases, it's a unified development. So there's no buffering required between the multifamily and the commercial section per se. The buffering that was required was between this development and the adjoining properties that aren't part of this development. In fact, some of the overflow parking for the apartments is actually down closer to the grocery store, and there is some elevational change. There's a retaining wall that sort of runs along that separates the grocery store and some of the parking and the gas pumps from the level of the clubhouse area for the apartments in one of the apartment buildings, and then it steps up a little bit up into the hillside there.
Okay.
Marty, this is Alderman Pinchuk. I got a couple of comments that I'd like to make. One, this project's been going on for almost 3-4 years because we didn't think that it could ever work to cram all these apartments in the grocery store and service station and commercial buildings all in that tight of a space. To make it work, they are going to dig into the back side of that hill, and they're going to put like a 30 or 40 foot wall, retaining wall back there behind the apartments. It's going to be huge. So as far as buffering, it's the wall is going to be the buffering, but it appears that he's pulled it out to make this thing work, and but it's taken a long time. So just wanted you to be aware of that.
It sounds like they're going to grade down so that the apartments are not really sitting as far above the grocery as you might first expect from looking at that lot.
Yeah, that's correct. There's still going to be a higher elevation, but it won't be nearly as steep as you think.
Okay. All right. That answers my question. All right. So
Marty, can I say one other thing, please?
Sure.
There have been times like this when we've made suggestions, and Bart, I would like to know what the fire marshal says about those trees. It's something I like some feedback to the members of this board, just for future reference as to what the fire marshal's thinking in this regard. So if you could let us know how number 3 works out, what the decision is made by the fire marshal, I think we deserve to get that information back somehow. Appreciate it.
Okay, and I also plan I plan on touching base with the landscape architect. I told him I would after the meeting, tomorrow or sometime this week, just to go over these comments, make sure that he gets all the corrections made on his final plan. And so I'll also bring that up to him and just make sure he's thought about the conflict back there, or the potential conflict with the tree crown and if there's any fire apparatus back in that area or not. Kind of rely on their professionalism to think about that.
Appreciate
Bart,
that.
I have a question.
Okay.
When there is a conflict like this and the fire marshal is involved, does he take his direction from the person who's actually doing the landscaping at a site, or does he take his direction from the people who are expert in the town on things like this with trees and plants and
Or our
whatever?
suggestions.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's going to ask. He's going to ask Mark and me about, what if there's a potential problem with those trees interfering with, what he needs the area for. He may ask for something from the landscape architect, just sort of documenting what the growth characteristics of that tree is. He's going to. Really, his concern is going to be, is that tree going to interfere with what he needs back there in terms of access? Is it going to interfere with his equipment? Is it going to interfere with, are the roots going to create a problem for that engineered turf? And if what he hears back from the professionals is that it's okay, he'll be okay with it.
I just want to avoid a problem. I don't want to have to deal with it later. If we can get it all straightened out beforehand, that's my concern. As a board, that's what I would like to do. And I agree. I would like for feedback too, like Ron said, so that we can judge in the future when these things come up.
One thing when this came up to the planning commission, the building itself, there was talk about whether or not a fire truck could get around those corners, even make those turns. So that's why I was concerned, because if he was concerned about the building and making those turns, and now we start putting trees back there, that's really going to be tight. And it may not be tight now, but 5-10 years down the road, as those trees get bigger, and all of a sudden, whoa, wait, we can't get our truck back there. So we need to make sure he's on board right now. So thank you.
All right. Sounds like the questions and comments have ended. So do we have a motion from the board?
Motion to approve subject to 1, 2, and 3, especially 3. Does that help?
All right. We have a motion from Ms. Hollyfield with subject to. Do we have a second?
I'll second Alderman Pinchot.
We have a second. I'm going to say that the applicant's not present because no one else has been here. All right. Any citizen comments need to read into the record?
No, sir.
All right. I doubt we're going to have an amendment again. So, ready for the roll call vote?
Okay. Mr. Armstrong.
Yes.
Ms. Hollyfield.
Yes.
Mr. Lehman.
Yes.
Ms. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Pinchot.
Yes.
And Ms. Stowe.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
All right. So that's the last item on the written agenda. Is there anything else from staff that we need to be aware of this month before we finish?
No, that's it.
Okay. Well, I guess with that, the meeting is adjourned until next time.
Okay.
Very much.
Everybody have a good month.
Have a
Take
good
care.
month.